Hello, my name's Ashley. I'm a tutor on Foundations to Psychology, and this video is going to be showing you how to search for journal articles using Discover. So, as usual, we're going to go to lrweb.beds.ac.uk, and there are a few ways that you can access Discover. You can click on the Discover link, or you can enter some keywords and click on search. What we're going to do today, so that I can show you as many functions as I can, is we're going to click on Discover. And much like the other videos, I'd really appreciate it if you could either come along with me on a different tab, or if you can make some notes and then come back to it afterwards and try and replicate the searches so that it really ingrains the process into your mind, because that would be really beneficial for you. So the first screen you're given is very similar to the first screen you've got in the main library catalogue. It looks a little bit more up to date, let's say, but you can search for keywords, title and author just the same. I want to draw your attention to the top right hand corner here. There's 3 or 4 different options that are beneficial, or maybe beneficial to some of you. Languages are quite handy. If you do speak a different language, it can make it just a little bit easier for you to navigate around. Preferences I'm not going to go through just now, but they might, again, there might be something in there that you want to select to make your experience a little bit more friendly, let's say. What's really important is the folder side of things. Now, the folder option on Discover allows you to create folders, as many as you like, that can be associated, let's say, with a particular unit or a particular assignment. So you could have Foundations to Psychology, and then within Foundations to Psychology you could have Assessment 1, Literature Review. And then what you can do is, when you do your searches using Discover, anything that you find that you think you're going to use, you can save inside that folder, and when you come to write your references list later on, you can then go back to that folder and know all of the articles that you found in order to compile your references list. There is nothing worse than finding an article, citing it in your essay, losing that article, or navigating away from it, or doing a different search, finding a new article, and then not being able to find the original article that you used. And obviously that's a real problem when it comes to things like plagiarism and having incomplete references list. So in order to get access to that function, you actually need to sign up to Discover. Now, Discover is a University of Bedfordshire sort of resource, but you don't have an account by default. So what you need to do is you need to click sign in, which I've just done now, and then you're given this screen here. And then quite simply you need to create a new account, and it's very similar to creating a Gmail account or a Hotmail account. It's very straightforward. If you go through that process, so that then you are logged in and then you have access to folders, and what it will do is each time, if you're on a different computer, you will need to log in again to gain access to those folders. So let's go back to the main page and let's review our essay question. So the essay question is: describe the process of classical conditioning and compare examples of how classical conditioning can be used to induce fear experimentally. So much like in the previous searches that we've done on the previous videos, let's break that down and pick out a few keywords. Let's use the same ones as we did in the previous video. Now, rather than using this basic search and just typing in, let's say, psychology, and then putting a comma, and then putting fear, and then another comma and experimental or something like that. Instead of entering that in, that can get a bit messy. If we wanted to swap around those words, or if we wanted to add additional words or remove certain words, it can become a bit of a fuss. So what I'd like to do is get everyone to just start using advanced search from the offset. So the advanced search looks worse than it is, really. All we really need to focus on is this top section here. So in this top section, you just enter your keywords, but instead of entering them all on one line, you drop them into different boxes here. Now, the great thing about this is it allows you to very quickly exclude keywords if you find that you're finding certain keywords are popping up too often, if you want to exclude an entire subject area, you can do that very, very quickly. So let's type our keywords into here. So let's start with psychology. So we make sure that we stick with psychology, and it will give you some suggestions like it has here, but if we just click away and that'll disappear. And then let's type in conditioning, as we did previously. And then finally let's type in fear. So let's say, for instance, if we wanted to learn about conditioning, but we weren't interested in fear, and we actually wanted nothing to do with fear because we did a search just for psychology and conditioning, and all that came up was lots of fear results. What we can actually do is we can select not. And what that will do is it will exclude anything to do with fear. Now obviously we don't want to do that in this search because we're interested in fear, but I was just highlighting that so you could exclude fear. So they're your keywords. Now, to begin with, I would leave these blank. It does say optional, but if you actually just have a look inside the drop-down box, what you can see is you've got all text, which will find the psychology keyword in this instance in all of the text. You've got author, title, subject terms, journal title or source, abstract, so only search in the abstract, and then ISSN, and ISBN. Again, they're more for if you're searching for a very, very specific journal article. But generally in the beginning, if you're just using keywords, just leave it on the top one where it says select a field, and it will just search through everything and try and find what it can. So where it says search options here, the best thing to do is leave that blank in the first instance, unless there's something specific that you're looking for in a specific date range or something like that. But even so, you can do all that once the results are there, and it's actually a bit easier to do it when all the results are there. It's just a bit more user friendly. So we've got our 3 keywords in there: psychology, conditioning and fear, and let's click on search. Okay, just wait for that to load. Right, so it may look a bit overwhelming, but it's really not that complicated. Let's go through the middle bit first. It might seem a bit strange, but these bits here towards the left we'll get to in a little bit. So first of all, you've got your page numbers of your search results. That's very similar to most search engines. You've got ways to sort things, so you can sort it by the newest published or the oldest published, or relevance, which is usually the best one to sort it by. And then you've got various page options. And then just below that, we go straight onto our search results. What that shows you is what type of result it is. So in this instance, it's an academic journal. It gives you the title, and this is the title of the article within the journal. So some people get a bit confused and they think that this is the title of the journal, but it's not. This is the title of the article within the journal. The journal title comes in a minute. So this one's quite a long title. It says Central Administration of Oxytocin Receptor Ligands Affects Cued Fear Extinction in Rats and Mice in a Time Point Dependent Manner. So if, like me, that is jargon to you, then it's jargon to everybody. But I'm sure some people will obviously be able to make sense of that. But what's important to remember is that just because it doesn't make sense to you doesn't mean there's not information in there that may be beneficial. If we go back briefly to the essay question, which is describe the process of classical conditioning, and this is a bit that I'm interested in now, compare examples of how classical conditioning can be used to induce fear experimentally. So although this is going on about oxytocin receptors and things like that, and rats and mice, it actually says fear extinction. Now fear extinction suggests to me that they must have induced fear to then extinct fear. And by that logic, there might well be some information in there about how they induced that fear in their experiment. So that might be handy. So when you're looking at all these journal articles and you're all overwhelmed because there's quite a lot of complicated language, very specific terminology, break it down and just look at the words that you're interested in, and hopefully then you'll be able to see whether that's going to be any benefit to you. So that's the title. Then we've got the language it's written in. It tells you that the abstract's available, which is good because that saves us a bit of time. And then it tells you the authors, so they're the authors up to there. And then here is the journal title. So this is the title of the journal as a whole. So this article was published in Psychopharmacology. And then it's just got some information here about when it was published. So it was published about a year ago, so it's quite up to date. It tells you the volume and issue number, and the page numbers, which is very important. This information is important for your referencing, as that is required in a APA reference. And then below we have subject, so it's highlighted here again our keywords, so conditioning and psychology there. It's highlighted fear over here, and there's some other stuff in there that might be handy. If there are images of graphs, it does pop them up there, but as I said, that's probably not gonna be that interesting, because that's quite out of context. Unless you can see it in the journal article and understand what it's all about, it's not really much help having them out there. So this next button here is add to folder. So if this is something that you might, you fancy reading maybe, or you think that it might be helpful, you can add that to the folders that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So the rest of your search results are basically the same. They follow a similar structure. So I'm not going to go through and explain. I don't think there's anything else that's new that pops up down here. The only other thing is below the add to folder is where you'll find the how to access the actual entire article. So this one's here a PDF, and a bit down below here there's a link through, a full text through link source, which I'll explain in a little bit. Before I go on to explain that though, let's have a look over to the left hand side. So Discover has done a very wonderful thing, and it's found us 150,000 results, which is incredible. That is a lot of information. And basically the reason it's done that is because we've told it to just search absolutely everything that it can, and just give us everything, which isn't bad. It seems to have pulled up, as I just mentioned, a reasonably good result there for number one. But let's have a look at what we can do to kind of maybe narrow it down and give us a few more relevant results. So the first thing we should probably do is have a look at this box here, which is refining your results. Now this is adding limiters, and what that means is it's limiting the results that are going to be displayed based on certain criteria. And the reason that's important is because you don't necessarily want to have articles from 1753, because they're not exactly going to be up to date. It would be good if we stick for as modern as we can, sort of maybe in the last 20-25 years maybe. That's going to really be the articles that are going to be most relevant to the modern day science. There are instances where you'd like to use older ones. Maybe, for instance, in this particular question, you might want to find Pavlov's original publications on classical conditioning. You might struggle to read them, but you might want to have a look for them and see if you can find them. One of the really important limiters that you want to put on most search results is full text. You only want to be shown full text. Now when you tick a box in here, or you select an option, it brings up and highlights the box here so that you know what you're dealing with, and then you can change the various options so that it limits your search results. So let's change, we've ticked full text, so it's only going to show us full text. And then let's have a look at the last sort of 20 odd years or something like that. So if we drag this slider, you can also type this in by, I quite like dragging the slider around. There you go, last 24 years. So from 1990 till today. And let's click update. Okay, so what we've now been given is the same result again. So Discover seems to think this is the most relevant result to our search terms that we've popped in up here, which is absolutely fine. But this next one's changed, so that might be a slightly different article there that might be interesting and worth looking at. And as we scroll down on the left hand side here, we can see there's different limiters that we can put in. So this is search types, so we might want to select just academic journals. I'm not interested in magazines and books at the moment, or ebooks in this case, so let's just look for academic journals. if you're looking for, let's say, a specific subject, so you might want to select fear. The risk is if you select too many limiters, you might end up actually getting less relevant results, because it's only looking at fear, and it might not look at other areas that might be just as relevant in terms of conditioning. And there's various different again limiters that you can put on down here, but these are probably more if you're looking for a very specific journal article that you already know about, kind of like what we did in the first video with that book. So we've got our limiters, so we've discussed them, we know what they do. They limit our search results so that we're getting more relevant information. Now, another thing that we can see here are expanders. So in this instance, this expander here, it says here that it's also searching within the full text of the articles. So by default, Discover always activates this option, so it just searches the titles, it searches the subjects here and the keywords, it searches the abstracts, which it always has in text, but that is also searching the full text of the article. So even if the article's mentioned fear somewhere in the main body of the article, but it may not have mentioned it in the title or in any of the subjects, it's still going to bring us up that search result. Whilst that's not a bad thing, because you might stumble across something that's quite relevant, I'm of the opinion that to begin with you should probably remove that limiter. It's going to reduce your search results, and you might end up getting something a bit more relevant closer to the top. So let's remove that expander, and whilst that's loading, an expander, its job is to expand your search, so it's to increase the number of results that you're getting, and that's really good if you're looking for something very, 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 very specific. Let's say you're looking for something very specific, you enter in your keywords and nothing comes up. The first thing you want to do is you want to add an expander. So that's one expander there, searching in the full text. Another one would be, let's say, searching a different database or something like that. So let's say you want to take a look at this first article here. The first thing to do is click on the title, and what that will do is it will take you through to the main record of this particular journal article. And it gives you very similar information, authors, but it gives you a little bit more detail about their addresses, where it's come from, publication type, and then it's got things like keywords here, and then it's got the abstract. Now the abstract's really important to read, because what the abstract will do is it will give you a very brief overview of what you might find inside the journal article. It might not be so helpful with this essay because you're looking for something very, very specific, but it might give you a little bit of a hint of something that might be inside. So it's talking about fear conditioning here, so that might be worth looking to see whether they've used classical conditioning to induce fear in those rats and mice. But the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you've got access to the full article. And there's about two ways that you can do that, and it depends on the journal article and the search result that you're given. So this particular journal article is a full PDF, and the full PDF is actually stored on the Discover system. And the good thing about that is that it's really easy to access. You just click here on the left, full PDF, and it opens it up in a flash on the screen. So this gives you, unlike the ebooks, this gives you access to the entire PDF document, so you can just scroll through this really, really easily. What you can also do with this is you can also print it, and you can also save it to your computer. So you've got different options of how you can access this particular journal article. Don't forget as well that you can also save it to your folder. If you get this far and think, yeah, I'm definitely going to use this one, and you want to use the folder system, then you can still save it to a folder over here where it says add to folder on the right hand side. So that's obviously a really handy option there. So that's probably the more straightforward way of accessing journal articles in terms of the full text. And if we go back to our results list, the way we know that it's a PDF in that sort of way there is it just says it there. See, PDF full text. Now the other option that you can be given is full text through link source. And this next one here, it says, what's wrong with fear conditioning? Well, that's good because that might help us with a bit of argument here. So it might give us some examples, and it might give us some information about how we can use this particular article in our essay to form some sort of argument. So let's click on that. Okay, so once again we've got very similar information, we've got the authors, etc. And then we've got the abstract. So once again, read the abstract first. That might give you some in-depth it's not in-depth, sorry, it might give you some overview information that makes you want to read the whole thing. And then we have to deal with this full text through link source. Now this is quite a simple process. You click on the link, it opens a new tab, and then you need to click on view this article at Science Direct. So click that, and it opens a third tab. And what this is doing is it's taking you to the journal publisher's website, which in this instance is Science Direct. And then there's two ways you can read this article on this website. You can either just read it straight off the website. So what you've got here is you've got the abstract, and then as you scroll down, gives you some keywords, and then the article begins here. And then as you can see, if you just look here, there's obviously pages and pages and pages, and you can scroll forever. Lots and lots of information. Alternatively, if you're, if you don't like reading on the website, sometimes it can be a bit annoying. It's quite squished in on that page. You can download it as a PDF, and you do that just by clicking download PDF. And whilst that downloads very, very quickly, another thing Science Direct does, which I think is quite cool, is it tells you, much like on Amazon or something like that, it says people who downloaded this article also downloaded these articles. So there might be something in there that will help you. It might not have come up in the other search, but you've still got access to it, hopefully, so you can look at the abstract or download the PDF. And that might be a really good way of getting some additional information. So our PDF's downloaded, and just like any PDF, it's very, very easy to navigate around. We can zoom in, and then we can go ahead and read through our article. So this article starts, Pavlovian fear conditioning is amongst the most successful laboratory paradigms in the history of experimental psychopathology. So there you go, it's quite a powerful first sentence that you might wish to use. So just to review very, very quickly, we found our way to discover. We went straight to advanced search and we entered our 3 search terms in. We then got our results. We found one that looked interesting, and then we had 2 ways of accessing it, either through a direct PDF or through link source, and then that took us through to Science Direct. So that's how you access journal articles online. I hope that's been helpful. Thank you for listening.